On this episode of Business Relations, Rob and I discuss what we got wrong and what we got right about the new NAR settlement. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the notorious Rob. As always, my co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson. Yes, Clark Kent.
It's kind of hard
Turning
to
into Superman.
The headphones on. I don't know. Jeez.
Turning into Superman. Shit, man. I gotta get my camera up or something.
I know.
I'm not that much shorter than you.
I'm messing with my camera setup, so I apologize, Rob.
No, it's all good, man. I mean, a lot of our people are just listening on audio anyway, but
yeah. So
yeah. I don't want anyone to think that you're that much taller than I am.
No.
That is not the case.
It is not the case.
But in any event, it's been quite a week, since we did our live stream.
Yeah.
A lot has happened, and I think we talked a little briefly. Maybe we just start. When we did the Friday live stream, we were just reacting, right, to just news. We hadn't really had a chance to think about it. We hadn't read the settlement agreement. I got to the weekend, and I've been posting a bunch of stuff, as you know. So I thought we would go with what do we get right, what do we get wrong on the Friday live stream. And I'll open it to you, sir. What do you think? What do we get right? What do we get wrong?
I think, and this is just the kind of fog of war stuff, right? Where we're not even fog of war. We just got it. You barely had a chance to you gave it a quick gloss. So did I.
Yeah.
You had a settlement, which a lot of people didn't have at the time, all the rest of us had was that FAQ and statement from NAR in the video, right? So none of the details about, the formula they use with the $2 billion club.
Yep.
Those kind of things were yeah. And and they're still, listening to everybody. And I wrote about this and we've been talking about this forever. I think the things we got wrong on the first, just to finish the thought here, what we got it wrong was we thought just reading the first part of the thing with it, everybody was covered. And in a sense of if you were an NAR member, mm-hmm. Yes, you are covered, right?
Yes.
What we got wrong was not going into those,
the appendices.
The appendices to discover that, well, yeah, but if you're in a certain class, there's a formula and some other things. So that's, I think initially we got thing. I think you would say that we got wrong that this is a great win or, a great job by NAR.
Yeah.
I would still say that it is, and we'll talk about that.
Sure.
I think that's something you and I can kind of agree to disagree maybe. And then what I didn't expect is just the goddamn backlash. The whole goddamn, social media has blown up. Mm-hmm. I wrote a post about this of all my kind of non-real estate friends. And then again, maybe not surprising, NAR, I think, just dropped the ball again.
Of course.
As far as communications are concerned. So,
of course.
But I think, I think the biggest thing we may have gotten wrong is just not understanding, because it was just so fresh, the ramifications for the $2 billion club,
and
right?
Some of the important details I think we're missing. And what's
but
cool
I wouldn't say that was wrong. It's just, we didn't have enough time to digest all of it, right?
Yeah.
So it was a quick take, as you called it, I think.
Yeah. And that's the risk of doing those live stream quick takes. We're gonna get shit wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. You're happy to be wrong, and there's a part of me that feels like I've had a lot of debates since Friday, right? And since publishing my 2 takes on it, I had a lot of debates around whether this will actually change anything, because as you know, my first take after having read through the settlement without the appendices, right, was that this actually changes nothing. I don't see anything changing. I don't see commissions changing. I don't see compensation changing. I don't see agent count changing. I don't see the buyer agent agreement thing being a big deal. I just don't see anything changing. And I've gotten a lot of pushback from a lot of different people whose opinions I actually respect. So, right. So not just
and you're
some
talking
random
about agents and brokers, right? That's what you're talking
right.
about. Yeah. The
Right. And
people in the
again,
field. Yeah.
right. And I'm not talking about like, random Twitter trolls, right, who
Right.
think that like we're Marxists. We're not talking about those.
You call me.
And we're not talking about fucking NAR sock puppets, right? Who will say whatever to glorify NAR. We're talking
NAR
about
stock
people's
buckets.
we're talking about people's opinions I
That's an
respect
AI
that they really
generated
push back
image
on.
we have to kind of do at one point, bro.
So I guess we'll start there. I mean, because basically what they were saying was, no, Rob, you're being a little bit too pessimistic, too cynical. Things will change, etc.
I
So,
think they're going to change, but not for the reasons I think a lot of people say. But
well, so let me ask you, what do you see changing because of this?
well, I'll go back and again, if anybody's read my post, but I'll expand a little bit here. Perception is reality, right? When CNN says the 6% commission rule has been blown up, but we'll never ever do that again.
Okay.
You know, that gets in people's craw. That becomes like part of like the zeitgeist of everything. And I think the industry is gonna have to deal with all the negative and the vitriol that a lot of people have had just on the consumer side of like, it's about time those realtors got their due.
Sure.
And I think real estate agents are going to have to combat that more than ever. Because the media, I think the mainstream media has really interpreted this thing completely wrong. Right. Which is,
Of course.
shocking. I know. Right. So I think
right.
that I almost think that might be the biggest thing. It's just that the way that this has been presented is that everybody thinks 6% has been blown up. Right. And that's going to be, it's almost like, the Zestimate. Well, it says the Zestimate is this, right? Well, hold on. It's like the Zestimate isn't all that, right? There's a lot of, that's a starting point maybe or whatever, but they didn't solve pricing homes, right? So, but it's like one of those things that realtors always have to do. Well, Zillow said my house was worth this much, or I read in the New York Times, nobody has to pay 6% anymore. Right. That to me is going to be a big deal. As far as the other stuff, I do think, there's...
Hold on. Before we move on to the other stuff. Okay, it's fine. So there's this PR nightmare, right?
Yes.
And let's call it what it is. And I'm with you, man. I've been noticing like, oh, man, the hatred against the industry, hatred against realtors. I mean,
there's a civil war, as you talked about. There's the hatred of agents and brokers that feel NAR betrayed them. In a sense.
We're going to get to that. I'm just saying just what you just laid out. CNN, New York Times, they all got it wrong. Right. And they're like, the 6%'s blown up. It's all history, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now this is now kind of the perception. Right. Okay. The thing is, like, you and I have talked about, like, it may be me especially because I spend time in comment sections of posts. It's like the last 5-6 years, every time there's some story about realtors, or I go on Reddit or I go on Twitter and, look at anything that to do with real estate, you will often find comments from various people who will say things like realtors are overpaid, they're scum, they're this, right? So that hatred was always there. Maybe not always, but let's say in the last few years it was there. It just wasn't surfaced like the way we're seeing now. Okay, yeah. So it's surfaced. How does that change things? So I'm a buyer agent, I'm a listing agent. Like, how does that change things, practically speaking, in your view?
Right. I think some of the stuff I've been reading is that and this is, I think, matches a lot of some of the research I've seen of, it's like they hate real estate agents, but they love their agent.
Bingo. Right. That's why I feel like nothing changes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the smart agent will go in. And so maybe there's some marginal change, right? Where
I think there's going to be commission compression. I think there's going to be
commission compression.
I think this opens up some people as an opportunity to create something, different models and things like that. I think there'll be some experimentation there. Now, whether they'll have success, we'll find out. But they'll have a tailwind pushing them of what has been portrayed in all the news, right?
Okay, and maybe we'll have to get into some of the details. And by the time this podcast goes live, I'll have done my webinar on Tuesday. So, I think a lot of the listeners may have, not a lot, but, quite a few, because I'm looking at the registrations, will have heard sort of my take on it already. So for you guys, like, sorry, this is kind of repeat. I just don't see that happening, right, in the longer run. What I do, so maybe what I have to change my mind on is there might be some marginal impact in the sense that buyer agents who are more experienced can go in and start bad mouthing the shitty agents who they probably should bad mouth.
Well, they
because
couldn't,
right?
they can't because of code of ethics, but they can now really be in charge of their value proposition, where before it didn't even make sense.
You're assuming that the code of ethics will be relevant to those agents, which we'll talk about. I have a feeling it's not going to be all that relevant. But anyway, so maybe there's a possibility. Hey, I know you saw the reports. You're right. There's a lot of these agents are scum. I'm not. You should, not list. I guess you should buy with me, right? Don't sign it with those crooks. Sign it with me. I suppose that's possible. But I guess I kind of feel like that's always been that's been in place for 10, 20 years, right? And the biggest complaint that I think working agents, because this is one of the things I point out, what pisses me off about the settlement is that it doesn't do anything to help the professional agents out there. The good people, like the good ones who really give a shit, who actually do the right thing. Because it used to be that, like, I know that I can serve a buyer and I'm going to do the right thing and I'll look out for their interest. But all of a sudden, like, they're working with some Yahoo or my cousin got his license last week, so I'm going to just buy with it. Like, right? So maybe this gives this sort of publicity, this perception gives them a bit of leverage. I'm not sure.
Right.
Right.
That reminds me of something. My other partner in crime, Stacy Wood over at Giant Steps, she was able to jump on the 1,000-watt webinar, which is more geared towards agents, right?
Yeah. I heard a lot of that.
Yeah, and Brian and Mark, those guys are masterful copywriters and messaging and whatever. And she said the message that they were kind of giving is, because when people hear about real estate agents, well, yeah, I can do this. I can go to Zillow, right? And I think what the guys at 1,000-watt were saying is, like, you know what? You should give that up. Absolutely. You can go to Zillow and tell me what house to find. But are you going to get your offer accepted? Are you going to understand, what, inspections? Are you going to, how are you going to negotiate a good price? I mean, yeah, go to Zillow. It's like, it's telling kind of buyer's agents, give that up. Just say, you are absolutely right. Go to Zillow. Tell me what houses you want. That's not what I do. That's a very small part of what I do. Right. And go with that value proposition. Right. So there's already, and this really goes to what you're saying. If they actually implement this stuff, not a lot is going to change, really. Right.
I don't think so. I don't. So maybe some real marginal changes. And I guess I'm kind of curious to see, because again, I hope to be wrong. Look, what would be great for me after this is all said and done is if the great agents capture massive market share, right? Because as I wrote in one of my posts, to me, like, one of the disappointing things about the settlement is that it doesn't address the biggest problem of the industry. And the biggest problem of the industry, for as long as I've been in it, possibly as long as you've been in it, has been there are too many crappy agents. Like, we all know this, and whether that's solved at the licensing level, at the NAR level, whatever, right? We just need to figure out how to get some of these, like, hobbyists and get rich quick scheme fucks. Like, we just need to get them out, right? And then have the agents who actually give a shit, who are willing to go and learn, who are willing to learn how to negotiate, willing to learn. Like, let's get them, right? Like, handling the majority of the business, right? So if that were to happen through messaging, because 1,000 Watts going to craft some great copy, great. My concern is that that's the problem with messaging, just messaging, right? Because anybody could say anything, right? I mean, when's the last time you went to some agent website? They're like, well, I'm actually kind of lazy. I'm not really going to communicate with you that often, right? Like, they're not going to do that, right? They're going to say, no, I'm here. Yeah, just go find the house and I'm going to negotiate for you. I'm going to get your offer accepted. Prove it. Right? Like, okay. Like,
so it sounds like to me that you're in the camp that the agent count isn't going down.
Agent count is not going down. Yeah, I hope it does. I don't see it. Not with the settlement anyway.
I don't see so either. I mean, a lot of people are talking about that. Yeah. I see some compression and commission happening. Not a lot, but I do see that. I see a little bit of that. I think there's going to be some people that are come up with some different models.
Nah, man. So let's talk about this, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the areas that I got the most pushback is this new requirement of buyer agency agreement. And I've now listened to enough sort of not just like random opinions, right? For example, I listened to the hour-long webinar, I suppose, class that EXP did. Right, Leo Pereira at EXP. Mm-hmm. Leo's a smart guy. Like he's really, really sharp. So again, I could be totally wrong, and kind of what they're recommending to their agents, right? Saying you need to get a buyer agency agreement signed. Here's what we're going to release some new forms for you, but here's how you're going to go about it. Blah blah blah. And the overwhelming message, whether it's from those guys or other people who are really smart, like really, really sharp operators, the big focus has been you just need to prove your value. Like you just need to communicate your value as a buyer agent so that the buyer would sign these agreements up front, right? And commit to you getting paid. Like, what's your take on that? Because I have a very different take.
I mean, I think when we talked about this last time, there's going to be like what we were talking about, a BMA, right? There needs to be a new workflow where before, because I mean, it was built in, right? The commission for a buyer's agent was built in. Right now, they're going to have to justify their value. They're going to have to like do some sort of presentation there, and then we can talk about, because I still have questions on before every showing, which doesn't make any goddamn sense. I don't know how that's going to be enforced either, but no, it's gonna. I think not everybody can compete. I think it's gonna be better for more experienced agents to be able to do that, right? I don't think the inexperienced agents are going to be able to do that very well.
Well, so let me give you my hot take.
Yeah,
I actually think what we'll see is people try that the next couple months. Okay. And then I think by the time July rolls around, which is when these rule changes are supposed to be in effect, we are going to see buyer agency agreements that look like this. Hey, Mr. Buyer, my fee is 2.5% or 3%. Okay. But here's a clause right underneath that section that says, I will never enforce this against you. So you are not responsible if I don't get 3% from the seller. Okay. And the reason for that is because here's what sort of, again, very smart, intelligent people whose opinion I respect. What they're counting on is, I'm a buyer. I go to maybe see a house or whatever. I call up, right? The buyer agent says, hey, yes, absolutely. I'm happy to help you. Here, sign this agreement. And the agreement says 2.5% or whatever, right? And what it says is, look, we're going to ask for this from the seller. But if the seller doesn't make it up, then you're on the hook. And I'll be like, time out. We haven't started working together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get on the hook for 30 grand. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I think, and the expectation, I think, is that at that point, the buyer would shop around and negotiate, right? That the buyer would be like, okay, fine. You're asking for 30 grand. This other guy, I'm going to ask him, hey, so how much am I on the hook with you, right? If we don't get the seller to pay? Oh, it's only 10 grand. So another guy's going to be like, I'm hourly rate, whatever. I think that's the expectation from those people. I look at it and I go, I think it's a matter of weeks, right? Months, maybe weeks before the buyer agent rolls out with one of those agreements, has every buyer go, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Fuck you. I'm not getting myself on the hook. It doesn't matter how often you explain, oh, don't worry. We're going to get this from the seller. Don't worry. No buyer's going to be like, yeah, but I'm still going to be on the hook for 25 grand. If that doesn't happen, no thanks. I'm not doing that. And once that happens, I think a lot of these agents will go, you know what? Here's a buyer agency agreement. I need to have a number in it because that's the rule. The rule says you have to have a number. You can't get paid more than that. But you can get paid less. So I think I'll just go 2.5%, no enforcement. You don't owe me anything no matter what.
How about up to 2.5%?
No, literally, you are not on the hook, Mr. Buyer. There's no risk to you for signing this. I think you have to roll out that buyer agency agreement because otherwise, what buyer is going to sign that?
Well, it's like, I mean, like you were writing about before, where a lot of these buyer agency agreements already do that. It's like you sign it, but it means nothing.
No,
right? Because there's already clauses, right? Aren't there already clauses in some of these?
No, it's everyone that I've seen so far hooks the buyer, and it's like once you sign it, you now are on the hook for 2.5%. I'm saying what the industry will discover is that buyers aren't that stupid. They're going to be like, nope, not getting on the hook. Which means the only way to get them signed is you say, there's no hook. No risk to you, Mr. Buyer. Just sign this agreement. This number here just allows me to get paid up to this amount. But you, Mr. Buyer, will never be on the hook. Right? Which is what? That's the exact situation we're in today.
So is it like is it a separate clause that says
no? It's you'll right never there, be plainly written out.
Up to 2.5%. So the phrase is up to is what I was saying, right?
Compensation 2.5% or up to 2.5%.
Up to 2.5%, right? Right.
And again, it depends on the rule. We could start referring to what the settlement agreement actually says, but it just says it can't be open-ended, right? It has to be certain, either a dollar amount or a rate, right? Not open-ended like whatever the seller offers me. So you have to put a number in there.
So right? I wonder if up to 2%.
I think that's okay because what it says, you can take less, right?
Right.
So fine, up to 2.5%, up to 3%, up to 25%. It doesn't actually matter because again, the point is the immediate second thing is communicate to the buyer, but you will never be on the hook for any of this.
Right.
So if the seller doesn't offer anything, that's my problem. That's not your problem, Mr. Buyer. I think that's I think what's the buyer agency agreement will look like.
I mean, it's exactly what's going on in a sense now. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And why would they do that?
Okay.
Right? Because the settlement agreement specifically says you can offer compensation.
Yeah. Well,
and Kevin Sears just made a video.
But the different thing, the difference though is, and I think that this is progress in a sense, is that conversation would have never happened before.
All right, I guess.
They would say, they would either say wrongfully and stupidly, the seller's paying for, all this, right? But this does force a little bit of there's more friction than before. Would you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
There's a very short 5-minute conversation you have to have. Listen, this is just legal paperwork. I just got to do it. Right. If you just sign this, I can show you this house.
Yeah.
Before I take you on the tour, I just need you to sign this. It's just paperwork. Just initial here and sign there.
Okay. So let's
hold on. And the 1 out of 10 buyers will actually read and go, wait a minute, this says 2.5% here. Yeah, but look at the next clause says you're never on the hook.
Well, does it have to be a clause that says up to 2.5%?
No, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the important clause is that you, Mr. Buyer, you're never on the hook.
Right.
You are not responsible for any of this fee.
You are not responsible for any of this fee.
Right.
So if it's the seller who truly is paying for it, then as part of the price. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Which is exactly the way it is today.
Right. Ish. Yeah.
I mean, that's a 5-minute conversation. No, of course. Economically, yes, I get it. Buyers only bringing money to the table. We get all that, right? But that's been the case for the last 100 years, and right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
then let's flip over to the seller side.
Sure.
Do you think that this is going to empower sellers to say, fuck that, I'm not paying anything?
Nope, I do not.
Okay, why?
Because, again, I didn't prepare for this podcast maybe, but I don't know if you saw Anthony Lamacchia, our mutual friend. The spokes sock puppet who keeps on giving. He recently, after the settlement, got on a local Boston area TV station interview. Okay. And he literally says what we heard him say on that panel, which is, hey, look, seller, you're free to offer nothing if you want. But when you do, you're not going to get any showings.
Oh, God.
I mean, he says this on it's not national. Thank God it's at least not national TV, but it's local TV. So no, that's not, no. It's like, so as a seller, you're going to be sitting with a listing agent. Listing agent's going to say, hey, you know how you heard that 6% is gone? Entirely true. It was always negotiable. I only charge you 2.5%, right? And that for that 2.5%, here's the list of stuff I do. Okay. Drone photos, CMA, because I'm a follower of Greg Robertson, right? All this wonderful stuff, right? And the home seller say, okay, cool. Hey, you're hired. You seem like you're real good. Okay, so we're going to do 2.5%. Yeah, but we're going to want to offer 2.5% out. What do you mean? You just told me the 6% is gone. Well, the 6% was never reality, but here's the reality. If you don't offer something out to the buyer agent, they're all going to steer clients away from your house. You're not going to get any showings. No one's going to buy this house. It's entirely your call, Mr. Seller. But if you don't blame me when your house sits on the market for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean that's cynical, but I agree with you. I mean, the way I think an agent should present that is, listen, we want as many offers as possible, right? So we want to say we're going to offer compensation,
of course,
right? Because we don't know, that could be the best deal, even though we're going to be kicking some back to the buyer. It could be an all cash offer that closes in 30 days.
It's not kicking it to the buyer, kicking it to the buyer agent.
Yeah, well, we'll go back to your previous comment about how it was before, the economics, right?
Right.
But we want to get as many offers as possible.
Absolutely.
If you want to limit to only these kind of offers, I gotta say, why would you want to limit offers? I mean, let's get as many offers as we can in the door.
Exactly. Right? And here, the thing I would say about that is the listing agent doing her job.
Yeah.
Right. That's the listing agent who's not trying to fuck anybody over. There's no conspiracy theory. There's no evil intent. That's the listing agent. Hey, I'm looking out for your interest and your interest of homeowners to get as many offers as possible. Right. And I'm telling you, given the system we have, if you don't offer anything to the buyer agent, those guys are going to screw you over. And that's exactly what's been happening for the past 30 years, which is why we have the steering problem, which is why we have the commission rule, which is why we have blah, 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 all of this. So the only thing that's happened is that the NAR rule that mandated off compensation and the MLS's role in facilitating that's been ripped out. Right? But the actual economic reality of an honest listing agent doing the right thing by her client is going to go to that client and say, listen.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right? You're going to offer compensation.
Yeah. I mean, it brings it down to the street level, right? Where it was all kind of like built into the system. So there is more friction now. We don't know the full results of that. I think you and I are both cynical in saying nothing's going to change, but we'll see how this plays out. I mean, there's a lot of things. Okay. Let me, this brings up the question I have still.
Yeah.
So, granted, right? We saw the Nulsevek's statement of interest. We know how DOJ is thinking, and we've heard that Ketchmark has been talking to the DOJ, right? I can't think of a more PR disaster than the one we have now. That if the DOJ comes back with another statement of interest and says, we don't think this is fucking valid. I mean, you got to believe. Even on, I'm saying not only on NAR's side, maybe they were tied to confidentiality, which is their shield, but even on Ketchmark's side, the attorney side, they want this to go through. They're fucking going to make, $2 billion off this whole thing by the thing is over with. I mean, you got to believe that they got some sort of smell test, a little dominus ominous from the DOJ to go through with this, right? Or what do you think? You got to think that.
I've been on so many of like investor calls and stuff last week, and this ends up being like my number one thing that I mentioned is that I have to assume the DOJ blessed this. Because the result in this settlement is so opposed to everything they said in No Select. Right. And Ketchmark talks to the DOJ, and everyone's focused on Ketchmark. I'm like, Ketchmark is small for he's small fry.
But that's our personification of this.
Correct.
Of that side, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, even if Ketchmark were, I'm saying the lawyers are like Cohen Milstein, Higgins Berman, and Sussman Godfrey are not those guys. Like, these are some of the best lawyers in the fucking world. There's no way they go out and say, let's do the settlement. And then, and then have the DOJ come in and wreck our shit. There's no way.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of, like, I would say a pressure leak valve, meaning if I remember correctly, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but there's something in that agreement that says,
yes,
if the DOJ or anybody comes back and wants to change this rules, you have to do that, or you're out of the settlement. So I think to me that's the clause, right? Because the deal. So we can go with this, but if things go awry, we're going to, because what I think they have to do is, it's just like, again, I relate everything to software. You put something out to the fucking public, you see how it works, and then you iterate, right? And I think that clause gives the DOJ to say,
Right.
All right, plaintiff attorneys, I really don't think this is exactly what I want to do. I understand your argument that this is the best you can do at this point, but we'll put this out. We'll go out there.
Yep.
And if they come around with some workaround bullshit, again, we have the right to go in there to tweak it, and then everybody has to follow. Otherwise, this whole fucking thing starts over again. So I think that's that one clause is it makes them pass the smell test for the DOJ.
Possibly. Now, what I don't know, Greg, and this might be something for like a Ed Zorn to answer, is that clause sort of standard boilerplate language in every one of these settlements? I don't know the answer. Right.
God, it is so open though. It's so, like
what I'm saying is I suspect it is. In other words, look, we're going to do the settlement, but if the government comes in and makes you change the rules, like you got to comply with those, right?
Yeah, like, remember the letter of agreement between DOJ and NAR, and that Biden administration ripped that up and did whatever. Yeah. But there was, but one of the arguments was, and this goes back to what you're saying, is that they could always come back.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of same kind of vibe that I get here, right? So DOJ, their argument, even though the lawyer struck it down, was like, listen, the agreement already said that if we want to come back and investigate again, we can. So I don't know why you're trying to toss this out or anything else, right? So so I think there's some precedent here for this type of agreement where we're going to do this, but hey, if we want to come back and investigate again, we're totally we're fine with that.
Completely. So I did this like conspiracy theory, and I identified it as such, right? This is total rank speculation, right? Because I don't know anybody at the DOJ. I don't talk to any of those lawyers. Like this is pure speculation, conspiracy theory. It could have been that those lawyers, the plaintiff's lawyers, went to the DOJ and said, listen, here's what we're going to agree to. Okay. I know this is not what you're wanting, but we need to get paid. And we have carried your water now for 4 years. Right, I think it's time for you to reward us. And the DOJ said, you know what? We are not party to this agreement, right? Because that's the other, like, DOJ is not part of the settlement agreement in any shape or form. We're not party to it. The FTC is not party to it. Good job, guys. Why don't you go get paid, right? But if this doesn't result in what we're wanting, then we can always go after NAR ourselves, right? And the only reason they haven't been more aggressive about it is because of that appellate DC Circuit appeal that's going on. And I've written, and we and I have talked about it. I'm fairly confident that the DOJ will win that case. So they'll be freed up to go back after NAR. And then here comes a criminal case. Right? I've written this. You and I talked about it. Like, everyone seems to think Sherman Antitrust Act, this is all just civil and it's lawsuits. Like, no. Sherman Antitrust Act is criminal law. The Department of Justice can put people in jail for violating that. So you want rule changes? See how fast you can get rule changes if you go and say, so Bob Goldberg's going to jail. Like, oh my God. Yeah. Do you not want to go to jail? How about you change your rules? Like, how quickly could they? So there's a conspiracy theory element of this where maybe the DOJ said, fine, we'll sign off on this. You guys have done everything you could. Go get paid. We'll see how this new rule changes work out. If it doesn't work out, we're going to come back in and spank these guys ourselves. There is that possibility. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about today's news real quick.
Okay. Yes.
Compass.
Yes.
Right. You had written in your second take that Compass could have been on the hook for 570
million. Yes.
Million. Now they settled at about, was it 57 million? About 10% of that.
4.5, maybe something like that. I can't remember the number. 57.5.
57.5.
10% of that.
10% of what the math worked out on NAR's 25 basis points of blah blah blah. Yeah. Now the other thing that I looked at is because it seems to me the coin of the realm has been 50% of your balance sheet, right? That's if you look at the anywhere deal,
not balance sheet, of cash, 50% of cash.
If I looked at the compasses and it looked like they had 166 million.
Okay.
Now half of that would be 83.
Yeah.
So they only paid 57. And this goes a little bit against what we've been saying, like, hey, first in is going to get the better deals. And again, somebody can check me on this 166 between balance sheet, cash flow. I mean,
sure.
Granted, I could be a little bit off on that.
Sure.
But it appears to me they got a pretty sweet deal. What do you think?
I mean, probably. I mean, they probably got a pretty sweet deal. And like I said on Twitter, man, it's the first domino, not the last.
Yeah.
Right.
So you think EXP and
I have to imagine, man. Now, here's where the challenge becomes, because I think we were going to debate on, like, so when one of the things we got wrong on Friday live stream, I was like, this is a humongous total victory for NAR, right?
I think
and then
so.
I read the settlement and then the appendices. I'm like, oh no, this is not a total victory for NAR.
Yeah, it is.
This is a disaster for NAR.
No, it isn't.
Dude, I think there's a legitimate shot that this settlement destroys NAR.
So, yeah, I did want to talk about this, right? Because I did read that. And, like, here's my take on that. It's like NAR, who is NAR responsible for? Their members.
Their staff, their
members. Their members.
Right. Sure.
I mean, they can't.
If you believe that, Greg.
They can't be the mama to everybody, right? Their first and only choices, their first and only kind of responsibility is to their membership. And they have done a great job of covering their membership. Okay. Even like to the fact they even went beyond that, where now there's a threshold at 2 billion, anything below that, any brokers and companies below that they've covered, right? Everybody wants to focus on, well, what about the guys over that? Right. I mean, I don't know how it's their responsibility for, a franchisor company and how they've been, making money from this business. I don't know if that's in their purview. I would have been great if they could have done it, but I don't think they can do. They're not the mama to everybody. I look at your.
I don't even understand what you just said. Okay, so NAR is supposed to protect all members, but they can't be the mama to everybody. So they're only protecting some of the members.
Well, no, all their members are covered. I mean, all their members.
What do you mean by members?
Is the CEO of a franchisor company a member of NAR? I don't think so.
So when you say members, who are you talking about?
The National Association of Realtors.
I know, but when you say the members of National Association of Realtors, who are you referring to?
The members, agents.
Agents. Okay. Is there a single agent that has been sued?
Not yet. And because of this, they are not going to be. Dude, good for NAR.
Dude, come on now. Right. There's no legal theory on which an agent can get sued.
I don't know how you. I mean,
other than Second Circuit.
I mean, listen. Yeah.
You know why? Because brokerage license the way it works.
Rob,
the agent is not
you can predict anything, right? I mean, no, you don't even know what these attorneys will come up with. I think there's a whole thing of like, if you want to be sued, you can. Okay. If people want to sue you, they can sue you.
Sure.
I mean, think about what's going on with the Better Homes,
after the settlement,
Berkshire Hathaway thing. Now they're jumping up.
Greg, after the settlement, a lawyer could bring a lawsuit against an agent.
Well, anybody could be sued for sure.
Exactly. So what does the agent have to do? They have to hire a lawyer to go to court and say, we're covered under this settlement. Please dismiss this case. Right?
Yeah. Again, if any idiot lawyer wanted to do that. I mean,
correct. Right. If they wanted to. Right. Well, before the settlement, an agent gets sued. They go and say, read the state license law. Please dismiss this case. It's the exact same thing. So when you say they covered their members, none of their members are getting sued. None of their members had any. There's no legal theory of liability.
There's preventative measures and then there's reactive measures, right? I mean, God knows where this is going. Nobody knows where this is going.
Okay, Greg, my point is none of the agent members were in any threat of getting sued
yet
under any of these. No, it's not even a yet. Like there was no legal liability. No new theory. Here's what they did cover.
You have been very good at your predictions, but you're not fucking, the end all be all of.
It's not even end all be all. Like when the Texas suit was filed, I'm like, these lawyers are fucking morons because they were naming like agent teams and agents, and I'm like, that will get thrown right out.
Okay, so
right, that'll
some
get
agents
thrown
were being
out.
sued. Then
They will
makes
get
my
thrown
point
out. it will get thrown out at the initial stage, which is exactly what would happen after the settlement. You sue an agent, the agent comes back with, here's an NAR settlement, throw this out. It's the exact same thing.
Like I don't know. I mean, I think I'm as probably. Go ahead.
So who did then NAR's member thing cover? It covered all of the locals. It covered all the states. It covered all the realtor MLSs. It covered all of their officers, executives, board members, right? And then it covered all the brokers under $2 billion.
Yeah, I mean, and then you want to focus on but it didn't cover these guys, and therefore it's a fucking bad deal.
Let's just state facts. My point is this notion that we protected 1.6 million members. Get the fuck out of here. They were never in danger. Only people who were in danger were people served on boards in the last 5 years. In other words, your insider crew, all of the realtor junkies who serve on local boards. Fine, there's a lot of them. You covered them. Good job. That's fantastic. Here's where the problem arises. That $2 billion line that you drew in the sand is going to come back to haunt you. It's going to come back to haunt you, right?
Now,
because here's what I want to ask. So let me ask you, Greg. Okay?
All right.
Let's say I'm in Houston, okay? And I'm over $2 billion. I'm at $2.1 billion, right? Even so, under the formula, I got to pay $5 million, right? Even under, so I go mediate, I go whatever, right? I'm going to end up paying something, right? I'm not getting away for free. Can we agree on that? Okay. Across town, I have a competitor who did $1.8 billion. In your mind, what's the difference between $2.1 billion sales volume brokerage and $1.8 billion sales volume brokerage?
Okay, so we're talking about two completely different things here, Rob, right? So
are we?
And two things can be, right and wrong at the same time in a sense.
Okay.
Meaning, now you're asking about tactics, dynamics, about deal structure. I think there's a good argument. Can I fucking finish? Can I fucking finish?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I think that they could have structured this thing not to have a line there because of exactly what you talked about. There are other ways of doing pricing. This is where I think in my head of tiered pricing versus other things. It could have been, a half of a basis point for up to this. And then that would make anything over 2 billion at a much lower rate. I mean, that's just one thing out of my fucking ass right now. There are other ways of doing this right now. So I don't think, so if I think maybe the failure here is that just the way they structured that formula.
Well,
I think
there's multiple failures, but that's one. Let me put it this way. But
I mean, you could poke a hole in any. I mean, again, I think of it as a pricing thing. You can poke a hole in any pricing strategy.
Sure.
This is what it is. And this is what they came up with. I think they could have come up with something a little bit less egregious for sure.
Okay, so now let's get back to the point I'm trying to make that you want to dodge. In your opinion, what is the difference between a brokerage that did 2.1 billion and one that did 1.8 billion?
Not a lot.
They're the same, right? They're going to have the similar number of agents. They're going to have similar amount of technology. They're going to have similar value proposition. They're going to be the same, more or less. Because again, we're not talking about Compass.
I'm not dodging it. I said it. Right. Not a lot. I don't think so.
Not a lot. Right. So you're the broker, are now going to write a check. Meanwhile, your competitor across town does not. You don't think that affects competitive balance?
I think I've already said I don't think that the way they structured this formula is really
huge mistake, right? If you're the $2.1 billion broker, you are livid and pissed off at NAR, which then leads us to a second ginormous fucking mistake. So the first mistake is, to your point, they structured it wrong. If they had gone with, look, it's going to be this, from up to this point, it's going to be this, up to this point, it's going to be this, up to this, right? They didn't do that. They said below 2 billion, free and clear. Above 2 billion, $5 million.
But let's be a little bit, real here, right? I mean, and we've already seen evidence as today. This was always a play to get these guys back to the negotiation table.
Who guys back?
The Compass and the bigger players in this thing, right? Because and you know what, Rob, now I'll throw something else out here that'll fucking piss you off.
All right.
Okay. It appears, based upon what we just talked about, that due to this stuff, and again, I don't know if there's a straight line here. Maybe Compass was talking about it fucking 5 months ago, right? But
of course they were.
But post settlement, these bigger players are getting a better deal than before NAR stepped in. Riddle me that, motherfucker.
I guess you'd be right if Compass wasn't negotiating at all until Friday. There's absolutely no way that's Compass is negotiating all along, and they just announced it.
Oh, so says you.
Okay, fine. So I guess it's factually, if somebody from Compass wants to come on and
I don't know.
clarify the message.
You seem to say that you fucking know. You don't know as much as I do. We don't know.
What I know is that the 2.1 billion broker is pissed off, and the 1.9 billion broker is like, yay, right? The pain is not equally shared.
Okay, let me ask you this question: is this over with? Because I think there's some things in here, meaning they got to go to the court. I think that there is still room here where that there's going to make some changes to this. Don't you?
How? Who's going to object to this?
The judge. I mean, again, after going through all this kind of stuff, people are going to go, well, you know what? After it got out in the fucking Twitter sphere, there's some really valid things here. I think we need to make a tweak here and a tweak there.
But my point, Greg, is somebody has to go to the judge.
I'll tell you what's got to fucking change. I'll tell you what has to change about this thing is July fucking 24th.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, and let me say why. If that change can be made, then I think a lot of changes can be made. And again, I always try to bring a vendor's perspective to these conversations. Sure. All right, so every MLS system in the country has to remove any sort of compensation things. Okay, now and Rob, you and I, because you are now in a situation where you're building a software company, right?
Yeah.
And you are frustrated when you say to your developers, hey, can you just add a button here or take a button out? Okay. And you're always like, they're like, okay, that's going to take X. Okay.
Right.
Now imagine, and again, that compensation field could be part of a table that also tracks this, and that table also references that. I mean, I could just fucking hear these fucking developers talking way over my head about why that's not an easy thing to do, Greg. And then there's going to be other things in the, you got to take stuff out of your knowledge base and that reference compensation. I mean, there's a fucking shit ton of work to be done, and all the MLS vendors have to do that. And we have the MLS organizations have to plan for that. And when do you think they're going to tell the MLSs to do that? A week before fucking it's due. And every MLS is going to do that. Now, don't get me started, because with form companies, winter is fucking coming. Okay? And winter, the whiteness of winter is all the fucking forms. And I'm not just talking about buyer's agreements, rep agreements, right? You could there's an argument for listing agreements to be changed. Purchase agreements have to be changed. All sorts of, And when do you think those motherfuckers are going to be done with that shit? They're going to a week before the deadline. Okay. There's no goddamn way.
Greg.
And that anybody on the fucking, any vendor in the planet can handle the shit, the pile of shit coming in there by fucking January 24th. It won't happen. It can't happen.
Okay. Fine. Greg, my point is that's fine. I agree with you. So maybe both parties, NAR and the lawyers, go to the judge and say, hey, how you said July 20th? We're going to need to extend that.
Okay.
My question is this.
What you're telling me, though, is that there could be some changes.
There could be some changes, absolutely.
Okay, so no, I've got you there. Now, hold on.
Okay, cool.
Now,
you got me. There could be changes.
Well, you were saying before, who's going to make the change? Who's going to make the change? Who's going to do whatever? No.
Who is going to ask for the change? Because
I think NAR has to.
Greg, let me put it this way. Judges do not sit around and make changes of settlement agreements.
No, NAR is going to make NAR is going to request these things.
Somebody has to come in and and request. Right.
Yes.
NAR
Hopefully
can make
they're listening to this podcast and understand that July 20th is a fucking pipe dream.
Sure.
It's a pipe dream.
Sure. And when NAR says, hey, hold on. When NAR says, hey, we're going to need to push this out, right? Or whatever change that NAR says we need to change, the plaintiff's lawyers have to agree to that. Pushing from July 24th to September or October or whatever.
It's end of the year. End of the year,
sure. I don't see the plaintiff's attorneys. They'll be like, all right, yeah, that's fine. Just push it. That's no big deal. Okay? That's really different than we're going to change the 2 billion threshold. That's really different than we're going to change the amount of money you could make plaintiff lawyers.
Hold on. Okay, so now finally I've got you here. Okay, so
sure.
if one change can be made,
sure,
right,
sure,
another one can be made, right?
It so can I be think, made, yes,
and I think, and you know, you're to me the person that is actually, you know, maybe putting this out here, like what that problem. Maybe you and I here by having this discussion, like, hey, you know what, we got the formula wrong, guys.
Yeah.
Right. There's we're going to show you how, again, all this is to get them at the table, take half their money. Now that NAR has done such a great job, it's actually less than half. Thank you, NAR. Once again, what a great settlement you've made. I mean, if you're listening to me pontificate here, that's all this is. If NAR can make a valid argument to them, listen, guys, you're going to get your money. We just have to smooth this out. So that we're just getting a shitstorm here, and it's going to be harder for you to get your money. If we make a little fucking change here, it's going to do that. I think that NAR can possibly do that.
Okay, what will NAR then propose to deal with the fact that they have revolted the elites on their hands?
I'm pulling all this shit out of my ass right now. I know. Give me
here's the funny thing, Greg.
Give me a few days or weeks to kind of think about how.
Here's the funny thing about what we were just talking about, and boy, the time's flying. As you and I are recording this right now, right?
Yeah,
I'm
Friday
sure other
10 a.m.
Right?
Pacific.
Little birdies have told you the same thing they told me, which is NAR right now is having an in-person meeting in Chicago, having flown in all of the $2 billion club people for an apology tour.
Yeah.
What are they possibly saying at the apology tour?
We fucked up.
What do you think NAR could be saying at the apology tour? Sure, they could get up and be like, look, we got you a much better deal.
Couldn't do anything better. And I think they're going to get their asses handed to them. And then there's going to be a lot of smart guys who are going to say, how about this? How about this? How about that?
Right, of course.
Right.
So let's say they come up with some, how about this, that will make the 2 billion club happy. Okay?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Okay. NAR then has to go to the plaintiff's lawyers and go, hey, listen, we have a problem. We need to make changes. Right?
Yeah.
All right. And maybe
we need to change the date. We need to, do this and do that. Absolutely.
But one of the things that you'd have to do to keep the 2 billion club happy is everybody pays. Right?
That is one solution. I'm not going to put everything in a box to say that it's only this. I think there's multiple solutions. Just because we can't think of it right now, that could happen.
My point, I guess what I don't understand is what the reason why the 2 billion club is unhappy is because they're the only ones paying. Where's the fairness?
$418 million fucking dollars, man. What are you fucking? They're the only one paying.
They're the only one paying of the
$418 million. Where's that? What does that mean? Nothing.
That's NAR's problem. Like,
well, no, but I mean, again, they're the only ones paying. There's other people fucking paying
dude,
also.
I'm a $2 billion company. I got to pay something. My competitor across the street with $1.8 billion doesn't have to pay anything. That's not fair. I'm unhappy about that lack of fairness, right? Which means the only solution is however you do it, we all got to pay or nobody pays, right?
There's not onlys. I mean, again, you're very good at this where you just want to put a fucking binary thing to it. There's not an only here. I think there's some creative solutions. You have to look at this.
What's the creative solution? I pay, but they don't. And
again,
then what?
We're on a fucking podcast and I can't give it to you right now, but I mean, here you got to reframe the question. Okay. There is a number. I think actually Ed Zorn is really fucking Nostradamus on this. There's a number in the head. I think it's 2 billion. Okay. These guys want their $2 billion worth of fucking flesh. Okay. Now they've run their fucking algos and said, okay, if we do it this way, that's going to get us there. We just got to fucking think of other ways. Forget about who pays, how they pay, whatever.
That's incredibly important.
Well, no, it is. But
that's the essential question.
Let's reframe the goddamn question of let's get you that money, and how are we going to do that? Here, we tried this way. This is going to give us some problems. Let's think of another solution here.
Okay, fine. That's to the plaintiff's lawyers. What are you telling the 2 billion club in the apology tour today?
If I'm NAR, I'm listening, right? Okay. And hopefully. The NAR, the $2 billion club, is bringing solutions and not just fucking bitching, right? So that would be a good thing to happen.
That would be a good thing. My question is, do you think the $2 billion club solution is anything other than either we all pay or none of us pays?
I don't know.
You say that's binary.
I think that there's other. Those are two things. I think there's more things, and just because I can't think of it right now, I don't think is a valid argument to say.
So the reason I was bringing this up is if the $2 billion club solution is, look, either we all pay or nobody pays, and then NAR now is in a position of having to go to the sub $2 billion club people and say, hey, you know how we told you guys were scot-free? You guys are covering.
They never said that. They said if this gets fucking approved, they've always been saying this is not done. It has to be approved, and then they're gonna. So what they're gonna say, Rob, is like we went to go get it approved, and this came up, and we have to make this tweak.
That would be a straight lie. That would be a gaslight.
What do you mean a straight lie?
Because it didn't go to the court. The court's not the ones making them do this. It's the other brokers. The 2 billion club says, hey, we went and talked to the 2 billion club guys, and they're not happy with it. So here's how we need to change it.
No. I think, again, there's a process here, right? Okay. It's like anything else. The process is we reach a settlement. We send that out to our fucking people. We get feedback.
Right. The feedback is, this is no good.
Well, from some, the feedback
is, the 2 billion club, this is no good.
From some, Rob, the fucking feedback is great. Thank you, NAR, right? And some, it's not so good.
Okay.
Right? So, sure, right?
Sure. And then what do you message to the under 2 billion club?
Well, again, the message so far is like, we have to get this approved. And I think when you say approved, that doesn't just mean the court, but I think it means we have to put something together that we can actually fucking, that isn't going to fucking, as you say, signal the end of NAR, right? Okay. It doesn't make any fucking sense for NAR to put something in there that is going to kill them, right? And maybe, but you don't know anything until you ship. You got to ship product, and then you'll find out.
Greg, they did.
Oh God,
they did. So here's fine. You could. That's fine, dude. The way I look at it is this: they are now going to, after the apology tour that happens today, we'll see what comes out of it, right? I'm just saying, think about it logically. The 2 billion club's gonna be like, that's fine. We all as an industry somehow need to get to 2 billion. The problem is you're putting all that burden on us. We're not cool with that. We need to share the burden. Okay, so we need to go to the 2 billion under club and be like, hey, everyone's got to pay.
Well, that's
some creative solution.
Some creative
solution. Fine. Yeah. Then NAR now has to go to the under 2 billion club and say, hey, you know how you thought you were all in the clear? You're not all in the clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They have to do that.
What's wrong with that?
You don't think that causes civil war?
Well, it depends on what the deal is.
So I'm $1 billion, broker, and I thought I was in the clear, and now because the big guys went and pressured NAR, now I'm going to have to write a check.
No, I mean, they brought up some stuff. You know what?
Here's what it ends up being, man.
They brought up some valid concerns.
Everybody leaves NAR.
We fucking listened.
Everybody leaves NAR. Is the end result.
And then what? We don't get the settlement, and then God knows what fucking happens.
No, you have a settlement. NAR still exists. But the membership numbers come January, February of next year goes to like 50,000 people.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And here's the other part of this. So we haven't even touched it, and we're running out of time, so we have to discuss it next time. Now that the MLS is no longer anywhere where you can do compensation, what's the hook? Why do you want to be a realtor?
Yeah, I'm not so worried about that either, but we can talk about that next time.
We'll talk about it next time. We will leave the audience with that cliffhanger. And since I know people love it when mom and dad fight, hopefully this is a great episode.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, man.
Fucking Rob. It's killing me. I hope people, yeah, whatever, dude. Okay. It's all good. It's all good.
Listen, we're out of time. So, hey, thanks for sticking with us. We will talk to you next time. And I guess we know what the topic will be. Although, honestly, there's a part of me, Greg, we should think about doing this. All right. I think people might be sick and tired of talking about this lawsuit incessantly.
Yeah.
I think we should do a movie review of Dune.
Oh, dude, I went to the 70 millimeter IMAX one here locally.
I went to the IMAX one too. So,
so
maybe
awesome.
We'll do that next Friday, just so we're not talking about this fucking thing.
The sleeper has awoken.
Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for listening. We will see you all next time.
Listen, content is everything. Two Brothers Creative makes it look easy. Right now, business owners really only have two options. The first option is hire a big firm. Now, this big firm's going to come in, make you think that they invented all the algorithms, and start charging you thousands of dollars every month. You don't want to do that. Second option is to do it yourself. Well, that means you got to learn SEO, SEM, copywriting, marketing techniques on the web. You should be really focusing on your own product. But now there's a third option. It's called Content in a Box. Give Two Brothers Creative 30 minutes a week and they'll handle everything. Plus, they'll show you how to bring it in-house later on. They'll rebuild your marketing foundation and give you tools and techniques and a new marketing playbook that'll actually produce real results and help you grow your business. Two Brothers Creative will give you the confidence and know-how to tell the SEOs and SEMs and all those other acronyms to get fucked. You're in control now. Get started today at thecontentbox.com.